Saleem. I'm an attorney. I just finished work and I've been getting a lot of messages and calls just the last couple of hours from clients, and a couple of even a professor called me to express interest about what's going on with this new policy that ICE, which is Immigration Customs Enforcement, it's part of the Department of Homeland Security, and they run a program which is for the Student and Exchange Visitor Program that allows foreign students to come to America and study F-1 visas, M-1 visas, what exactly it's going to be affecting them. So I just kind of wanted to update everybody. Four things. Number one, what exactly is this new policy that is being discussed in terms of immigration consequences for international students on F-1 and M-1 visas? So everybody knows, because of the global pandemic, we've got universities and colleges that are going only on online courses. So their entire courses are being taught online. And ICE just released a policy literally yesterday, July 6th, that says it would no longer provide exemptions for international students taking online classes due to the pandemic during the fall 2020 semester. So what that basically means is that as of the COVID-19 pandemic, all the universities, majority of universities, were online, and international students were able to take those classes and participate and get the credits and still be in good standing in terms of ICE's eyes to keep their F1 and M1 student status. However, this new release just by them, which is a detailed rule, it's going to be published in the Federal Register as a temporary final rule, basically does not allow international students to take only online courses. And that's really critical, because I think the last time I checked, some major universities, including prestigious ones such as Harvard, are doing, I think I saw something about Harvard, I had it pulled up, that says that they are establishing all course instruction, undergraduate and graduate, for the 2021 academic year will be delivered online. So imagine that you're a Harvard student, international student, and ICE is going to come knock at your door saying, hey, you got to leave the country. You're not in compliance with our guidelines for immigrants because you have to be taking some in-person classes. So let's talk a little bit more about that. That's the details of the policies and so forth. So U.S. Department of State, which is the entity that issues visas, it's not going to issue visas to students enrolled in schools or programs that are fully online for the fall semester, nor will Customs and Border Patrol permit these students to enter the United States. So imagine that you are a F1 student attending Harvard, and you're visiting home during the summer, whatever country you're from, and then you're trying to get back into the United States to get ready for the fall semester, and Customs Border Patrol, SEVP, basically detains you and says, you know what, your visa is being canceled or revoked because you're trying to attend a university that's not in compliance with our rule that requires that you must go to a university that has some in-person courses. So, I mean, just imagine how problematic this rule is. I can only think about universities all throughout the United States, Chicago, Los Angeles, that are probably thinking, what are they going to do to protect their international students? So this is something that's really serious, and I think one of the things that active students have to kind of think about is, and it's going to force their hand, is that they either have to depart the country or take some other measure, such as transferring to a school with in-person instruction, in order to remain in lawful status. That's really important for international students, that they remain in lawful status, because if they imagine the Harvard scenario, unless Harvard changes its policy on that, they're going to Harvard, they stay in Harvard, and they're doing all online instruction, ICE will deem them to be in non-compliance with this rule, and essentially, they could end up being in a removal proceeding before an immigration judge, having to explain themselves to why they were not in compliance with this rule. So that's the second part of that aspect. Now, what can international students do to make sure that they are in compliance with this, because ICE did say that they could be attending a hybrid model. So one of the things they have to do is they have to make sure they are in contact with their student colleges, I guess student services or whatever office that handles international students, to make sure that that school's program is going to attest that they are in a hybrid model, and that they have some online classes and they have some in-person classes as well that they're attending. Now, I don't know, fall semester is something that many universities are still trying to figure out what their policies and guidelines are going to be. And different universities have different policies and procedures on this. But one of the things that F-1 students and M-1 students can definitely think about and know as of right now is that students attending universities or schools adopting a hybrid model, which basically means it's a mixture of online and in-person classes. So, you could be taking one class that's in person, and the rest of your classes could be all online, and that'll make you feel a little bit more comfortable, even if there's a pandemic that's raging in the fall semester and so forth, that you're not putting yourself at risk or others at risk. You'll be able to do that, and your school or university or college is then going to have to certify to SEVP, which is what I mentioned before, the Student Exchange Visitor Program run by ICE, that they'll have to certify through the form I-120, which many international students know what that is, that there is a certificate of that this program is not entirely online, and that the students are not taking entirely online course load for the fall 2020 semester, and that the student is taking the minimum number of online classes required to make normal progress during their degree program. So that's also really important, because some students have talked about perhaps taking less of a course load. You don't want to run kind of afoul of the requirements and the guidelines that say that you still have to be completing your degree program in a timely and normal manner. So I just wanted to kind of share those key points for international students. New York City has, Brooklyn has, thousands and thousands of international students here that are going to be affected by this policy. And I'm kind of curious what the universities in New York City and throughout this country are going to be doing to try to help these international students who may be vulnerable. Like I mentioned before, Harvard says it's doing all online for undergraduate and graduate. So imagine you're doing a PhD at Harvard and you're an international student. You're going to have to figure something out with the university so that you have at least some in-person instruction for your courses. That's all. Thank you, folks.